starting with MP Morantz for the first 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Governor, Senior Deputy Governor. It's great to see you here again at committee. Governor, it's been widely reported that our GDP per capita is at its lowest growth rate since the 1930s. That GDP per capita has declined now, according to Stats Canada. It declined in the second quarter. That was the fifth consecutive quarter in a row. Now, also it's been reported Canada lags significantly behind the U.S. in GDP per capita, a trend that's continuing. In fact, Canada is now at 71% of the U.S. economy. We rank 18th in the OECD and 6th out of 7 in the G7, ahead of only Italy. Now, yesterday at a summit in Toronto, you said fixing Canada's productivity problems will likely take a top-to-bottom overhaul of government rules that obstruct people's ability to do their best work and businesses' ability to grow. Monetary policy, fiscal policy, tax policies, competition policy, IP policy, we need to look at those. So my first question has to do with the increase in the capital gains inclusion rate. Are you concerned, or do you find it unhelpful to deal with our productivity crisis, which is the label that the Senior Deputy Governor put on it back in the spring, when the government goes and makes such a massive increase to such an important tax?
Well, you won't be surprised that I'm not going to comment on specific tax measures.
Well, I'm not asking you. I'm asking you as an economist to say whether or not you think an increase in tax like this is going to adversely affect or be unhelpful in solving the productivity crisis that your own office labeled a productivity crisis, break glass. So I'm not sure you can label it as a crisis and not respond to a reasonable question about a major tax increase.
Look, what I will say, coming back to my remarks yesterday, we have a number of framework policies in this country: inflation control policy, fiscal policy, competition policy, tax policy, IP policy, and my message yesterday was really that yes, we have a serious productivity problem in this country. And there needs to be a concerted effort to look at these framework policies through the lens of productivity. It's really up to elected officials, up to Parliament, up to governments to decide on specific measures. And I'm not going to comment on specific measures, but I do think it would be helpful to look at these through the lens of productivity.
Well, as an economist, I'm sure you're familiar with tax incidence theory. If you put a tax on something, do you get less of it?
Look, as an economist, I understand how taxes work, but I'm the governor of the Bank of Canada, and I'm not going to comment on specific tax measures.
You already opened the door to it when your office put out a grand statement in the spring saying that Canada was in a productivity crisis. So now, I'm sorry, Governor, it sounds like you're dodging the question. The government took a measure that is going to adversely affect the exact problem that you have warned them they need to solve. So I think it is incumbent on you as the Governor of the Bank of Canada to say, when you increase a tax like this, don't you hurt productivity at a time when we need to be enhancing our productivity?
Look, I think it's incumbent on the government to talk to the tax measures they're taking, not to the Governor of the Bank of Canada.
So you're not going to answer that one. What about you talked about a top-to-bottom overhaul of government rules, which that obstruct people's ability to do their best work. Could you specifically point out which policies of the government have obstructed people's ability to do their best work and businesses' ability to grow?
So yes, just to sort of back up a little bit to the comments that you're quoting yesterday. So I talked about sort of three big buckets that I think need attention if we're going to tackle this very serious productivity problem. And we've talked about the first one. There's a broad range of framework policies. The second one I somewhat provocatively called the own goals, the obstacles, the things that we've done that were well-intentioned policies, but are barriers to increasing productivity growth. And so, speaking to those, there are many interprovincial trade barriers. There are interprovincial, separate, provincial qualifications for lawyers, for electricians, for doctors that make it more difficult for people to move around the country. We've been very good at bringing immigrants into the country. We're not as good at recognizing their credentials so that they can get the most productive job that they could in Canada. And then the other thing, certainly I hear a lot of, particularly when I'm outside of the country, I often hear from large foreign investors, we're very interested in investing more in Canada. North America is a great place to be. You've got rule of law, you're a stable country, many attractive features, lots of talent, but the timeline to get regulatory approvals is very long, and it's uncertain, and that is a barrier to us
I'm sorry,
investing.
Governor, my time is almost
so
up.
those are the things I was talking about.